Okay, so we started the meal. We'd had the first course. Now, it's generally customary on the Shabbos to have a meal consisting of both fish and meat. Okay, so that's why it's generally customary to start off with fish. Okay? Yeah, it's customary. It's customary based on the fact that, as we're going to see that there's a verse in the prophet Isaiah that says, "V'karata Shabbos oneg," and you shall call the Shabbos an oneg. Oneg means a delight. Okay, and that has given rise to a number of customs and practices in which we try and do things that make Shabbos different, more special, and a delight compared to the rest of the week. So although you may have fish and meat during the week, make sure that we have it during the same meal on Shabbos in order to signify that Shabbos is a special day and we're turning it into a delight. So if you've started off with a traditional gefilte fish, yes? Someone's at the door. Sorry, at the door. Then, after having finished the fish meal, the Gemara tells us that one should not eat fish and meat together because it's bad for your health. Okay, it doesn't elaborate anymore what that exactly means. But the Rabbi said, since the Gemara suggests that it's bad, in some way dangerous to your health to eat fish and meat together, we don't eat it on the same plate. And any cutlery or crockery that's been used for fish or meat should not be used for the one or the other, vice versa. So, if you've eaten fish and then you're going to be eating meat, you should rinse out your mouth, have something to drink, or eat something in between. And this applies to whether it's on Shabbos or any other time. But that's given rise, particularly on Shabbos, because that's likely when we have it, to having the nice custom of having a l'chaim between the fish and the meat course. Okay, so it's a good excuse to have an alcoholic drink in order to rinse, to make a distinction, a separation between the fish course and the meat course. Yeah.
This isn't a Shabbos question, but if you're at a simcha and there's a reception and it's a kosher caterer who's catering, why are they then passing around fish, fish balls or whatever, or goujon, and then another bowl is with meat? Is that up to the person who's
because it's not, because the halacha, the strict halacha is they shouldn't be eaten on the same plate together. But if you're eating them separately and having something in between, then we don't make a thing about it. Okay. So that's the reason for a l'chaim, and then we can move on to number 12, zemirot. Now you've got a siddur. Everyone's got a siddur in front of them. You got a spare?
I'll show you. Oh, I've got a spare here.
Spare. Again, in order to liven up the meal, in order that it's not just like a general, because we have plenty of time on Shabbos, and also to create a lovely Shabbos atmosphere. It's traditional. Again, if you turn to page 277. You'll see, 277, page 277. It's customary to sing zemirot, yeah, Shabbos songs. Okay, lively Shabbos songs, various tunes, various different songs. There's a few here. There are lots and lots of different ones. Just a selection of them here. Again, just to add to the special Shabbos flavour of the meal.
Rabbi. Aren't these the zemirot for the evening Shabbos?
Yeah.
There's another one for the day.
Yes. Yep. They're interchangeable, but you'll see some are printed here for the evening, and further on in the siddur, in between Musaf and
429.
Thank you. Page 429. You'll see some more. These refers particularly to the day, but again they can be used interchangeably. It's purely there to liven up the meal. So at the same time, there's also a custom of saying words of Torah, divrei Torah. Words of Torah should be spoken at the Shabbos meal to elevate it to a higher level than just a normal, ordinary meal. Okay, so those are the things that govern the Shabbos meal. Okay. Let's say we've had the meal, finished the meal. Two final things to do at the end of the meal. Anybody seen one of these before?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the Jewish version of a finger bowl. Yes? Chinese did not think of it first. Okay, that is Chinese, isn't it? Yes. Finger bowl. Okay, so you may have seen this being passed around at the end of the meal. This will generally be filled with water. And before benching, before Birkat Hamazon, tradition is a custom to rinse the tips of your fingers. Procedure is similar to washing hands, but here you don't have to pour so much water. You can see it's only very small. This should be enough for everybody who's at the table. Just to pour a tiny bit of water over the fingertips of both hands.
Has it got a name then?
This is called, yes, this is called Mayim Achronim, number 13 on your list.
Oh.
Mayim Achronim,
Why?
the after waters. Okay, I'll come on to it in a second. So this is done at the end of the meal, just before you're about to bench. Just before Birkat Hamazon. Mayim Achronim, Mayim means waters, Achronim means after waters. Just as we washed our hands before the meal, in order to elevate our eating from a purely physical act to a spiritual act, similarly when we come to the end of the meal, we're just about to bench, we're about to bless God. Just as the Kohanim, the priests in the temple, before they performed the service in the temple, they would wash their hands and feet. Here, symbolic of that, so as we said, the table is like an altar. We symbolically wash our hands in order to show that we're preparing ourselves to bless, to thank God for the meal that we've just had. The other reason for it is recorded in the Gemara. Gemara talks about the fact that water should be poured over the hands at the end of the meal in order to remove melech sodomit, sodomite salt. Okay, a type of salt that used to be used at meals, which was a very strong type of salt that, if it was put on the face or in the eyes, was very dangerous. It was very bad. Okay, so in order to require people, again, this was a health risk. So that was the requirement, was for it to be washed off. So although the halacha says that this washing at the end of the meal is a requirement, it's a strict requirement at the times when this salt was in use. Nowadays it remains just as a custom. Okay, not strictly obligatory, but is an accepted custom to wash your hands at the end of the meal. It doesn't have the same force and format as the washing at the beginning of the meal, so you don't have to use a cup and anything like this. You don't have to have the special utensils. You could just go off to the sink and just rinse your fingers, or you could just have a cup of water and then just rinse your fingers at the end of the meal.
So this is the thing, it's not just for Shabbat.
No, this is not just for any meal. Yeah, before benching for any meal, yes. But generally...
I've actually done a little bit of homework on that.
Okay.
And there's another thing,
Go on.
but it might not be. It's, you know, when we wash our hands before it's like for Hashem, and after it's to like push away the bad spirits and things.
Haven't heard of that, maybe? Okay, haven't heard of that, but maybe. Yes? Okay. One other thing with this, if you see this being passed around, so just again, this is about, if you ever see this, go somewhere and you see this being passed around, you know exactly what to do. Just take it, a little bit on both fingers, and then pass it to the next person, and then you can dry your hands. Some people have the custom just to wipe it on their mouth a little bit, some people have the custom not to dry their hands. Just follow what other people are doing, okay? And then pass it around, and if you're the last person with it, it's like a hot potato. If the last person with it, it should be removed from the table, because the water that's been used to wash your hands shouldn't be left on the table for benching. It should just be removed from the table. Okay? Put somewhere else. It can be put on the floor.
Since
Okay.
you're washing your hands, do you have to say a bracha?
No, there's no bracha whatsoever on this. No, there's no minimum requirement of amount of water to be used. There's no bracha to be said. Okay? It's purely custom.
Rabbi, you said one morning this week about the salt at the end of the meal. Remember you were talking about salt being a very expensive commodity in those days, and it is often added at the end of the meal.
Yeah.
Which follows the logic of having to wash it off your fingers, because you've actually...
Yeah, you've taken a pinch of salt, yes. Yeah, absolutely, could well be linked to that. Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then we're ready to move on to Birkat Hamazon, generally referred to as benching. Yes, that one of those, again, English words, a mixture between Yiddish and English. To bench means to bless. Yeah? Yeah, bench means to bless. Benching, there's no ing in Yiddish. It's Yiddish, Englishism. Okay? Page 723. Okay. Again, not limited to Shabbos meals. Any meal that's involved bread, one should bench afterwards, based on the fact that Torah says you shall eat and be satisfied and bless. It's a Torah requirement. But as we're having here, a Shabbos meal that's had bread in it, then it's an absolute requirement here on Shabbos. And particularly on Shabbos, it's worth noting there's certain additions to be made than there would be during the week. So on Shabbos, you start on page 723 with Psalm 126, Shir Hamalos, generally sung out loud by everybody together. You'll see on 723, after the main paragraph, there are 4 verses printed in smaller typeface. These are generally accepted as part of this first song. But you'll see, again, there's so many different varieties of benches around. Okay? Books which are specifically made with the benching in it. Some have them in, some have them don't have them in. Okay? Again, it can be very confusing. You get to the end, the word alum osav, and then some people will carry on, some people will stop there. That's the end of the large print. Some people will carry on, some people will not carry on. And in some benches it might be printed, sometimes it might not be printed. It's actually not the reason why it's not actually part of the of that psalm, but it's the themes are similar, and that's why it was included there. Okay, the bottom of 723. Then you have a word, mezumim. Heard of that word? Anyone know what that is?
Invitation?
Yes, mezumim means to invite people. Yeah, when 3 or more men over the age of bar mitzvah have eaten together, and there's other people at the table as well, but there have to be at least 3 males over the age of 13. If they've eaten together at the same table, then the benching is introduced with what we call zimun or mezumim, which means an invitation. One person is asked to lead the benching, and they will invite the others to join in together. And it's based on a verse in Psalms that says, "Exalt God with me, let us extol God together." Okay, so there's an added element when the difference between doing something on your own, benching on your own, and benching together as a group. We note the fact that always better to do things in a group. Rav Hadras Melech, we say that in a larger group, the more honor is given to the King of Kings, God Himself, when we do things in a group. So if there are a group of minimum of 3 men and more, then it's led by one person. If you see, turn on to 725. The leader, you'll see, it's got all the instructions here. The leader will say, Rabbi Sign Vorech. He's inviting everybody to bless God, to start benching. Then the correct response of everybody else is the next line. Yehi Shem Hashem Vorach Me'ata B'Adolam. Have you all got it? Okay. So they're saying to him, yes, we're ready, let's bench, let's bless God together. He will then continue. Birshus, with your permission, Rabbi Osai, with your permission, Nevarech, and then you'll see now next line in brackets the word Elokeinu. Okay, can you see that? The other word Nevarech. Then the second word is Elokeinu. Now this word is said if there are 10 or more men eating together. Okay. Because now we have a minyan, and we can actually add God's name into this part of the benching. Okay? So, if there are 10 or more men at this point, the person leading will say, Nevarech Elokeinu Shachanu Mishalo. As he says the word Elokeinu, he'll raise himself up slightly on the chair, just to signify that we're saying God's name. And in response, everybody else, don't worry about the small print there, look at now the next large line, company then leader, it says, Baruch Elokeinu, everyone should raise themselves up slightly off the chair. Shachanu Mishlov Tuvachayinu. Okay, they're all saying we agree now to be part of this together. And then that will be repeated by the leader. Then everybody will say together, Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. And then go in at the bottom of the page, 3 lines, the large print at the bottom of the page. That's the first bracha of benching. Okay? This can either be sung together out loud, or depending on whoever's custom it is, it'll be said quietly. If it is said quietly, or if it's said out loud, continue on to page 727. To the end of the first paragraph on 727. If you're saying it as a group, if there's 3 or more, or 10 or more, then you should wait. When you reach the end of that first paragraph, you should wait there, and the person leading will say that last line, that Baruch Atah Hashem Hazan Es Hakol, and you should answer Amen to it. Okay, because he is actually acting as the leader, and you're responding to it. And then continue with the next paragraph. Nodeh lecha. You'll see at the bottom half of the page are special editions for Purim and Chanukah. On to page 729, continuing an edition there for Purim. The next two large paragraphs in the middle of the page. Again, after the first main paragraph, you'll see there's a bracha there. Baruch atah Hashem ala aretz v'ala mazon. Again, if the leader says that out loud, respond amen to it, and then carry on. And then continue to the bottom of 729. Note here, on Shabbos there's a special edition to mark the special sanctity of Shabbos. That paragraph at the bottom of the page. Continue on to 731. First small paragraph, the first paragraph on that top page, again for certain editions, different times during the year. Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, Shavuos, Pesach, Simchas Torah, and Shmini Atzeres. And then, on all occasions, continue halfway down 731. You see that little asterisk. Again, now here's a very interesting, an important point to note. When we reach the end of this verse, Uvenei Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh B'mheir V'yameinu, Baruch Atah Hashem Bonei V'rachamav Yerushalayim. Amen. Okay, notice when I said it, I actually paused between the words Yerushalayim and Amen. Everybody says Amen here. Now, we have a rule which is you never say Amen to your own bracha. Totally unnecessary. So here, even though you're saying the bracha, you're actually saying Amen. So the truth is, you'll see after the word Yerushalayim there's a full stop. You should pause and then say Amen, to show that you're not saying Amen after your own bracha. Here we're saying Amen in order to signify a change in the status of the benching. The first three brachas that we've just said are of Torah origin. The rest of benching is actually of rabbinic origin. So to mark that change in status, we say Amen. Okay? But you should pause you hear everyone saying it, they all get with great gusto, Bonei v'rachamav Yerushalayim, Amen. Yeah, it should be Bonei v'rachamav Yerushalayim, Amen. Okay? Is that clear? So there's a pause there to show you're not saying Amen to your bracha, you're saying Amen in order to mark the distinction between Torah required benching and rabbinic instituted benching.
Why did that happen?
Why did what happen?
Why did the Rabbonim add extra bits?
Because they felt that there were certain things that should be mentioned as part of benching. Okay, at a certain time in history.
It says at the bottom here the asterisk about in the house of a mourner.
Mm-hmm.
So it says substitute the following two passages instead of from Uvenei to the end. Yeah. Why? Can
we come back to that when please God, we'll get on to dealing with mourning, the practices of mourning. Okay, can we deal with that then? Okay. Okay, let's carry it. So we carry on after that paragraph. Continue to the bottom of the page. 733. Leave those two paragraphs because that's what we've just been referring to. In the house of mourning, that's what it's for. 733. Halfway down, continue with the large paragraph for the large print. 735. Just at the bottom of 733. But if you've got in yours, the print has been rubbed out slightly there. The last few words on the end of the page. Yeah. Harachaman hu yivarech. At this point, you turn then from there onto page 735. You'll see there are various different formulas to be added in, depending if you're eating in your own home, in the home of somebody else, or a child eating in the home of their parents. Various different formulas are added in there, so you can bless whether it's your home, the home of your parents, or home of a host. There are various different blessings are put in there that you're asking God to bless either yourself and your family, your host's family, or your parents and your family.
What if you're in your children's home? If I go to my children's home, there's not.
Then you'd say it for yourself as if you were in home, and then add in for the owner's home. Yeah.
So as if I was a stranger's table.
Sorry.
It would be at the stranger's table.
Yeah, as if there. Yes.
Who's considered a stranger?
Well, it means if you're a guest at somebody else's home. That's what it means.
Right.
Yeah. You're not in your own home, and then everybody continues. That said silently. Everyone then continues with the large type paragraph of Sanu. And then continue the rest of the page. You see then at the bottom of the page, you'll see various additions for Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, and Yom Tov. And then on to 737 again, top of the page, some additions for different days. Then everyone continues, Harachaman, the large print there. And you'll see two slight variations, whether a weekday or on a Shabbos, whether you say Magdil or Migdal, just to note again the difference in the status of the days. Continue with that paragraph, and then the final paragraph. Again, I'm not sure why they've printed it in small print. That is a definite part of benching. I think just maybe to keep it on the same, to finish it off on the same page, maybe. Okay.
That bottom paragraph.
Yeah.
Was, when I was younger, it was never used in benching.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just
Interesting.
wasn't there.
Interesting.
It's only more
Okay,
recent.
maybe that's to show that it's maybe a later edition. Maybe a later edition.
It was never there. It always finished on the Johnny Shoe.
I'll say Shabbat, yeah.
Rabbi,
Is that
2
right?
points.
Yeah, it just stopped.
In the beginning, you've got the 3 men or the main men.
Yeah.
If a Kohen is present, I noticed that an additional word is put in, and if it's at a simcha, they, Rabbi Sai, etc., I believe is added. Is that correct?
Rabbi Sanavarek is always added. Is always there. Sometimes people make certain additions, not strictly necessary. Taken as a custom to add it in to recognise that you're making some particular reference to it. The Kohen, the reason why the Kohen is mentioned there is that the truth is the honour of leading the benching should be given. If there is a Kohen present, it should be given to the Kohen.
Oh.
If the Kohen doesn't want to do it, he defers to the host, then mention should be made of the Kohen, because we always give preference in everything to the Kohen. Just so we call up the Kohen first, so we give him preference to lead the benching first. If he doesn't want to, then you mention reference to him.
My second one is when you're again at a simcha, the blessing for the balabais, etc. It's not the right words. They add us a blessing for the whole of the people present.
Yeah, that's it.
It's not in here.
Yeah, it's not in that one. Some benches have, again, various different benches have it, some do, some don't.
Right.
Yeah, add it in the same.
So it's not essential, it is a custom.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so that's benching, that's the end of the meal. Good. I should have mentioned that not only should you remove the mayim achronim from the table before benching, but if you've taken the challah off the table, any remaining challah that you haven't eaten at the meal, you've taken it off the table, and it hasn't defrosted yet, then you should, before benching, return it to the table. Okay, the halakha requires it to return to the table in order to signify that this is what you are thanking God for, as a recognition of the goodness that God has provided for you, that you've eaten, you're satisfied, and now you're thanking God. This is what you're thanking God for. So it should be put back onto the table to signify that. Okay?
Uncovered or uncovered?
It can be covered or uncovered, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Okay, well let's move on. Okay, we've heard of Shabbos, yes, second word. Oneg is that word I referred to before, that verse from Isaiah, V'karata Shabbos Oneg. You shall call Shabbos an Oneg, a delight. So literally it means Shabbos delight. And this is a general term for everything that we do during Shabbos to make it into a delight. So we said, for example, having fish and meat. As we're going to see, there is a requirement to have 3 meals in order to make Shabbos an oneg. Okay? So that it has a general reference in terms of that we turn the Shabbos into an oneg by keeping it. The Gemara talks about it, how the great sages of the Gemara used to save the best things that they managed to acquire during the week for Shabbos. So if they found something nice, they put it aside for Shabbos. If they found something nicer than that, they'd eat the thing they'd already kept and then keep the next thing for Shabbos. In order to make Shabbos a delight, we reserve the best things for Shabbos. So that's in a general sense. In a specific sense, there has been a practice in more modern times for people to get together on Shabbos, either on a Friday night in the long summer Shabbosos, or Friday. Either way. In the winter, when you've got a long Friday night, or in the summer, when you've got a long Shabbos afternoon, for people to get together, it's a social get together. It's called an Oneg Shabbos. Yeah, it's very much big in the youth movements. Bnei Akiva particularly used to get together. The youngsters used to get together on a Friday night or a Shabbos afternoon, sing songs, play games. give divrei Torah, speak words of Torah, in order to make use of that time for socialising and again just a nice opportunity. Interestingly, I found a note that said that it was introduced in Tel Aviv by Chaim Bialik. Yeah, you know the famous poet. He made it very popular in Tel Aviv during his. I can't remember when he lived, but he made it very popular. Getting together, singing a song, Shabbos afternoon, Friday night. That's an Oneg Shabbos in its small, narrow sense. Okay, so that could happen on a Friday night or a Shabbos afternoon. Another thing you may have heard of, may not have heard of, on a Friday night particularly, number 16, Shalom Zachor. Yeah? When a baby boy is born, the first Shabbos, when a baby boy is born, it's customary to have a Shalom Zachor.
Why not a girl?
I was just going to say that.
How did I guess that question was going to... How did I know? Because by definition... Sorry? I'll come into it in a minute. The reason why it can't be for a girl is because by definition, Shalom Zachor means greeting to the male. Okay? Shalom means hello or peace to. Zachor means the male. Okay? It's based on a Gemara that says, Kivan Sheba Zacha Ba'olam Ba'Shalom Ba'olam. When a male comes into the world, peace comes into the world. Make of that what you will.
Starts all the wars. Something's wrong somewhere.
Or maybe it could be read as, when a male comes into the world, peace needs to be made in the world. There you go. Okay? But it is actually noted in Halach, in the Shulchan Aruch, that there's it's a custom on the first Shabbos after a boy is born for people to get together in the house where the baby is.
To have liquid refreshments.
To have some refreshment, some singing, divrei Torah, words of Torah to be spoken, turns it to the level of a Sudas Mitzvah, some say, to a meal at the level of a mitzvah.
Only for men, isn't it?
It's not
the
only...
ones that are at home looking after the others.
What I love is people to have open minds. That's what I really love. Open minds. It's fantastic. It's not just for men. Customary for the men to get together. The women who want to get together, absolutely fine. There's nothing saying women can't get together either. The custom is, though, to get together to welcome the male child. The reason why it's for a male is because this is the first Shabbos before his bris. Okay? And because, so we are in some way protecting the child because he doesn't yet have a bris. Okay, so that's why it's particular to a boy, because he not yet has the protection of having a bris. So to gather together, to share words of Torah, acts as a spiritual protection for him. Also because we have a Gemara that tells us that a child is taught the whole of the Torah while it's in the womb. The moment it is born, an angel strikes it on the lip and it's caused to forget all of the Torah. And so this gathering is also in order to console the child for the Torah that it's lost. It's actually in mourning for the Torah it's lost, and that's why there's a custom to eat chickpeas or any other round foods at a Shalom Zocher in order symbolic of the fact that the child is in mourning for the Torah it's lost. Okay? In more modern times, it has been customary to have a Shalom Bat. Okay? There's no source for it. Or also known as a Zevet Bat. Zevet Bat.
Also on the Friday night?
Yeah, also on the Friday. You do it every night.
Whenever they do it.
For a girl, you do it every night of the week. Every night.
Shalom Bat, that's what
Okay. So there's the Shalom Zachor. You may have heard of that, may have been to one of those. Very nice thing to get together on a Friday night. Okay, number 7.
Especially when the lights go out and everybody's still present.
Right. Okay, that's normally the indication to go home. Okay, number 17. Number 17. And this should actually be spelled as Kiddusha Rabba. K-I-D-D. I'm sorry, I spelled wrongly. Kiddusha Rabba. Anyone know what this is?
Rabbi's Kiddush.
Good idea. Rabbi actually means great Kiddush. Kiddusha Rabba means the great Kiddush. And Coventry Road every Shabbos is a great Kiddush.
True.
Fantastic.
Some better than others.
Every week. Okay. The reason why it's called, this refers to page 427 in the Siddur. This is Shabbos morning Kiddush. It's Shabbos morning Kiddush. It's called Kiddusha Rabbah. It's actually an euphemism. Because whereas Friday night Kiddush is a Torah requirement, Shabbos morning Kiddush is actually only in comparison a rabbinic requirement. And the truth is, the formula for making Kiddush on a Shabbos morning is actually the strict requirement. The minimum requirement is only to say the words. Is only to say the bracha over the wine. And the rabbis added in. You'll see there's 2 paragraphs there. V'shamru and Zachor, page 427. These was added in to bulk up the text of this bracha, and that's why it was referred to as euphemistically as the Kiddusha Rabbah, the great Kiddush, in comparison to the Friday night Kiddush. Okay. Okay. So we know this is generally said, most shuls it will be said straight after the morning service, together with some refreshments. Ideally it should also be repeated, just like on Friday night, it should be repeated at the place where you're having your meal. Okay? So even if you've made it in shul, you should really, if you can, go home and repeat it just before the meal, where you're having. Ideally you should.
Quite often you come in and we've all been in shul.
Yeah, if everybody's heard it, not strictly necessary, but if you can, ideally you should. Generally, the reason why it's probably repeated at home is in case those people haven't heard it at shul.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a time factor in this one?
No.
I thought it had to be done within an hour and so. When you sit down for the Shabbos night.
No, you've got the whole of the afternoon to say it. It's just say it as early as possible, but there's no early to late.
There's no time limit on it.
Okay, that's Kiddusha Rabbah. Page number 18. Shabbos Suda. Literally means the Shabbos meal. Suda means a meal. Again, you've heard this word Suda bandied around quite a lot. Okay, this is now the second of the 3 required meals. The first one was Friday night. This is now the second one. Because in truth, you shouldn't really eat until after Kiddush on a Shabbos morning. You shouldn't really eat. You shouldn't eat a meal before Kiddush. Sorry.
You don't mean like breakfast.
Well, you shouldn't really. You shouldn't have anything too substantial. Yeah, nothing too substantial until after Kiddush.
You can't have anything with wheat.
And Kiddush. Yeah, nothing that will constitute a meal in itself. No. Okay, so we know it's a mitzvah to eat, and we'll come on to that a bit later on. The procedure for Shabbos morning meal is the same as the Friday night one. We wash in the same way as we wash on Friday night. We make hamotzi. The only difference between the way that the motzi on Friday night and the one on Shabbos morning is that it's exactly the same procedure. Am I going too fast? Tell me. No? Too slowly? Okay, thank you. The only difference between there's no really significance to the paper plastic bag, okay? Again. The only difference between the Friday night and Shabbos morning is, remember we said that on Friday night the challah that you're going to be eating should be the underneath one, okay? On Shabbos morning the order should be reversed, okay? The top one should be the one that's eaten. Okay, to reflect the 2 aspects of Shabbos, the Zachor v'Shamor, and the fact that we said that the Friday night and Shabbos morning reflect 2 different aspects of Shabbos. The masculine aspect, the feminine aspect is Friday night, and the male aspect is Shabbos morning. So the male one is on Shabbos morning. We have the top one. Again, draw the knife over the top one, put the cover back on if that's your custom. Hold them both up with all your hands and say the bracha. Then remove the under one. And then cut in to the one that you scored.
The custom, sometimes my husband does it, is before he actually says the bracha, he cuts makes a mark.
Yes. Okay. So you draw a line just over the challah, so there should be a minimum gap between making the bracha and cutting the challah and eating it. So we'll try and reduce the cut. So if you've pre-scored it, you know exactly where you're going to be cutting it.
Why?
Why? In order to cut down on the interruption between saying the bracha hamotzi lechem min haaretz, cutting it and eating it. It should be the minimum amount of gap. So rather than
see.
you say hamotzi lechem menorah, it's then looking, where shall I cut, where shall I cut, where shall I cut? You're about to cut there and the wife says, no, don't cut there. You're about to cut there, don't go. Yeah? And everything else, just do that. You pre-cut, she can't talk, it's Shabbos, what a wonderful day. Stop filming. It'll be edited out. Yes, okay? Yeah, that's the reason. In order
If
to
you haven't got the second colour, is it okay to use matzah?
Yes, as long as you've got two pieces of something, yes. Yeah. Okay, so that's the only difference we make between Shabbos morning and Friday night. Okay? Okay, so then we have the meal. Again, similarly, we turn that meal into an oneg by saying words of Torah, by Zemiros, by Shabbos songs, benching at the end in exactly the same way as we bench Friday night. And that moves us on to number 19. Suda Shlishit, or Shlishis, or Shalus. Yeah, you have to have your teeth in for this one. Shalosh Sudas. There's two ways of saying it. It literally means the third meal. Okay?
Can I just ask something for
Yeah, of course.
about the follow?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that you have to use a whole one? Can you use, what happens if by mistake we slice it?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't use 2 slices from a challah.
Ideally, it should be whole. In order as part of the oneg of Shabbos and part of giving kavod of Shabbos, they should be whole loaves.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you don't have, you don't have.
You baby ones or hollow rolls?
Rolls are okay, yeah. Matzah's okay. Yeah. Okay, Suda Shlishis. Okay, this is generally had, again, in order to fulfill the requirement of having 3 meals on Shabbos, and it is a requirement mentioned in Halacha, in Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, to have 3 meals on Shabbos, even if you don't necessarily feel like it. And that's why, interestingly, why it's called, why of all the meals, the first 2 don't have any particular name to it, but the third meal has the name the third meal. And the reason, there's a nice explanation given, is that sometimes, particularly on a short Shabbos, where there's a very small gap between having eaten lunch and then eating the Suda Shlishis, which is sometimes just referred to as Suda. Yeah, they drop the Shlishis the word. But everyone knows we're talking about the third meal. The reason why it's called the third meal is in order to remind you that the reason why you're eating not only this meal, but the other 2 is not purely in order to satisfy your physical needs, but in order to fulfill the spiritual requirement of having 3 meals on Shabbos. Okay? So particularly at this time of year, when you don't really feel like eating that third meal because you're not hungry. Yeah? Firstly, that should show you that you've eaten too much at lunch. Okay, you should have in mind, honestly, you should have in mind that there is a requirement to have an extra meal and it won't be long before you're having it. And also to remind you that all of those 3 meals were not just for the sake of satisfying you physically, but also to nourish you spiritually as well.
Could you use your dessert? Like, could you have your main meal,
Yeah.
bench,
You have to make hamotzi.
and then you have to make hamotzi, and then you have to have your dessert?
Yeah. You could. The truth is, you have to leave the table and come back to the table. It has for it to be considered to be a separate meal. You'd have to have gone away from the table, gone to something else, and then come back.
Okay.
Okay.
Where does breakfast come in all of this?
Breakfast is not considered to be a meal
not permitted.
unless you're having.
It's permitted.
Yeah. I mean, if you're let's say for example, unlike the prevalent Anglo-Jewish custom of davening on Shabbos morning fairly
Early.
later on in the day. If you, let's say for example, you davened at 7:30 and you finish by 10:30, then you make kiddush and then have then breakfast can be your first meal. Yeah.
Oh,
It
right.
could, so it could be because as long as you have bread in it, it could be considered as your second meal. Okay. Yeah. Will be. Okay. So let's say we're now on our third meal. This will take place after mincha, which is on page 439 in the Siddur. Yes. Has to be had after mincha.
Page
439. Now I can't remember when we were doing last term when we went through all the prayers. Did we look at Shabbos afternoon mincha? Yes, we did. Okay, so I don't have to go through the formula of it. Yeah, the fact that there's going to be there's Torah reading there and Amida. Yeah, we did all of that. Okay, fine. So let's assume that we've done mincha. Again, because for the sake of convenience, generally A lot of shuls will have a Suda Shlishis, or just call it Suda, in shul after Mincha. For those, so that after Daven Mincha, they'll immediately have a Suda there. A wash, make hamotzi, and then have a small meal, and then bench before Shabbos goes out. Or if, as long as you've started before Shabbos goes out, the third meal can actually extend after Shabbos. Okay.
Is it obligatory for women then? Because if women don't go back to shul for mincha, can you have it at home?
It's obligatory for men and women. Yes. No, it should be after. It should be after mincha time. But women, even though it's not at shul, they should have one at home as well.
But it has to be after mincha. Which
Should be after mincha time. Yes.
Darkish.
Yes. I mean, women doesn't have to strictly wait until then. But if a person is going to be davening mincha, then they should wait for the suda after mincha. Okay. But if a woman's not be davening mincha, then she can have it whenever she wants. Okay.
Sorry, what's the minimum requirements for the Suda lead?
Okay, excellent question. It literally is enough bread that you can make hamotzi on and bench on. That's all you have to eat. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Again, just a quick idea of the source of the requirement for 3 meals on Shabbos is based on the fact that we know that the children of Israel were provided with the additional portion of manna, of man, on Friday, so they didn't have to collect it on Shabbos. If you look in the Torah, the word hayom, the Torah says on this day, meaning on Shabbos, there won't be any man. It's repeated 3 times. And the rabbis take that as an allusion to the requirement to have 3 meals during the course of Shabbos. Okay, so that's why it's fulfilled with this at the end. Again, wash hamotzi, we said Divrei Torah. There are special zemiros for that meal as well. And benching as well at the end, same formula as we've seen. Okay, number 20.
Sorry, do you need 2 hollows for Suda?
Ideally, yes, but if not, then one is sufficient. Yes.
Do you cut the top or the bottom?
Either one.
Either.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Either one. Yeah. Either one.
Is there
the nearest one to you.
You don't.
Sorry. There's no need for kiddush. No, that's a good point. No need for kiddush either. Okay, number 20. These words again, this is part of the vocabulary everyone we should know. Motzi Shabbos. Motzei Shabbat. Literally means the going out of Shabbat. Okay? The exiting of Shabbos. Okay? The way that is marked in shul will be on page 535 with Mariv, the evening service. Again, I think we've been through this.
Yeah.
Similar to the weekday evening service, with particular additions at the end. You don't have to look at it now. Page 535. In some Sidurim, you'll see it won't be printed together. The evening service will be printed in the normal place for the evening weekday service, and then you'll have to go to further back in the Siddur for the additional part of the conclusion of Shabbos. In shul, at the end of Mariv, generally Havdalah is said. Okay? So you'll see Havdalah said in shul. But even if you've seen it said in shul, it should still be repeated at home. Okay, and we'll come on to that in a moment. Okay, now, when is Motzi Shabbos? When does Shabbos go out? Well, just as when we talked about when Shabbos comes in, we have the concept of Tosefes Shabbos. We add from the weekday of Friday afternoon to Shabbos, as we bring Shabbos in early. Similarly, we add at the end of Shabbos. We delay the exit of Shabbos until it's definitely the night, which is in Jewish terms the next day. So the way we know that Shabbos has gone out is on the appearance of 3 medium-sized stars. Okay, and those times are obviously widely published. Okay, well that is what we call Vadai Nacht. It's definitely night. Okay, it's clearly well into the night. Okay, that's Motzei Shabbos. Once Shabbos has gone out, depending on the what time during the month it is, number 21, we come on to the next thing, Kiddush Levana. Now this is the next type of Kiddush that doesn't involve any wine. Okay, so don't get excited. Okay. Yeah, this is Kiddush Levana means the sanctification, which is Kiddush. Levana is the moon. Okay. Sanctification, the blessing of the Levana, the moon. Okay. Now this is always done on Motzei Shabbos, after Shabbos has gone out at night, because the moon is then obviously clearly visible. It's done usually 7 days after the new moon, because that's when the moon will be nice and clear, be a sizable size that you'll be able to see it. Okay, it won't be so small that you'll be able to see
Can you
it.
still do it if it's cloudy?
1 second, and it can be 1 second. So it's generally done from the 7th of the month up until the middle of the month. Once you've gone past the 15th day of the month, it's now too late to do it. Okay, and you'll see again printed in any good luach, any good Jewish calendar, it will say the day when it's the last chance to do Kiddush Levana. Okay.
So that's the nearest Shabbos to that.
We always do the nearest
In that
Shabbos
month, in that-
after the first 7 days. So
So in other words, this
Shabbos,
week,
yeah.
Shabbos it won't be.
when was Rosh Chodesh? It was Wednesday. It was Wednesday. No. Some I would say some have the custom of doing it after 3 days. But some wait full 7 days, and then
So it'll be next
the
week.
next week after that. Yes.
Done,
The week
just-
after that.
just-
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Why is it done, or why is it? Why is it done? Okay, I'm coming on to that. Okay. One notable exception is, and again, this you may be familiar with this. You may have heard this. Rosh Chodesh Tishri, the blessing of the Kiddush Levana in Tishri, the month in which we have Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, is we wait until after Yom Kippur. Motzi Yom Kippur is the time we do it, and that's why you'll hear. Or generally, you won't hear it because everybody's rushing out to shul, but. You might hear if someone will go out and check if it's a clear night and the moon is visible. What is the date of Yom Kippur? The 10th of Tishri. So it's perfect just after the 7 days have gone. So 10th day, we wait until then because it's a joyous time. It should be always done at the most joyous time. So wait till after Yom Kippur and do it. And then, right after the Amar of Yom Kippur, it's the first mitzvah to do after Yom Kippur. Unfortunately, yeah, but if Sukkot would be too late. So you often see people doing it then. Okay, customary done after Shabbos because firstly it's dark. We're still in our Shabbos clothes. We have the joy of Shabbos that comes with us, and generally it should be done with a minyan. Although it can be done on your own, it's better to do it with a minyan, and since a minyan will still be present after Mariv of Motzi Shabbos, it's best to do it then. Why do we do it? It's based on a saying in the Gemara that says that anybody who blesses the month in its time is as if he has greeted the divine presence. Okay?
Can you say that again?
Anybody who blesses the month in its correct time as if he's greeted the divine presence. Why is that so? The reason is because the moon, if you think about it, the moon is probably the most noticeable of the things in creation that changes. It's the most visible thing that changes during the month. Yeah, you can see it grow, you can see it wax and wane. As we know, the Jewish people are also likened to the moon. Just as the moon waxes and wanes, so too the fortunes of the Jewish people wax and wane. As we know, the Jewish calendar is based on the lunar system. Okay, lunar cycle. Yeah. So we bless the moon in order to recognize that. In fact, if you look at the formula of it, and it's in page 753 in the Siddur. Look at it very quickly. Someone mentioned the moon has to be clearly visible. Okay. Generally, someone will go out and check that it's visible for it to be done. If it's obstructed by clouds, and you can't do it because you have to be able to see it. Yeah. So generally, the formula is page 753, a psalm to start with. But then you'll see halfway down the page there's a bracha there. You should look at the moon before you say the bracha, but you should not look at the moon as you say the bracha, because we have to be very clear, we don't pray to the sun, we don't pray to the moon, we don't pray to anything except for God. So although we're blessing the moon, we're actually blessing God for the moon. Okay? So it's not some sort of pagan moon worshipping ritual. Okay? So you look at the moon, then look away and you say it. Generally, if you're going to be saying Kiddush Levana, if you're doing Kiddush Shul, generally there are cards printed specifically with the text on it. So you probably won't be using a siddur. You won't be generally given again. So if you're in Shul on a Motzi Shabbos and someone thrusts a card into your hand that says Kiddush Levana, you know exactly what they're talking about. Okay, it's not some sort of appeal for someone called Kiddush Levana, right? They're telling you we're going to go out now and we're going to bless them alone. Okay, it's got all the formula on it. You've gone to 755. Various different things that are said 3 times. 3 times has significance. It gives it a certain chashiva, certain importance. Little thing there. The second paragraph down says, "Kashem shani rokei kenegdech," just as I dance before you. It's customary to sort of to rise up on your heels and do a little dance. Nothing fancy, just because the words say, "Just as I'm dancing before you, nothing's happened, nothing's said to me. So will all my enemies be may not be able to touch me." What is significance is, you see further down, it says 3/4 of the way down the page. It says here, say 3 times to a friend. You see that? Shalom Aleichem. Again, so if you're standing out there and someone comes up to you and says Shalom Aleichem, don't punch them in the face. Reply to them, Aleichem Shalom. Okay. Again, the idea is that we're benefiting from the light of the moon. It creates achdus, it creates unity and friendship between us. We recognise that by welcoming, by saying hello to each other. The correct response, if someone says it to you, is say Aleichem Shalom back to them. Okay? And then we've got Simul Mozov, and then a few other verses, again, depending on various customs, however much you want to say. Generally ended off by somebody saying, everyone's saying Aleinu, and then if there's a mourner present, they'll say Kaddish, if there's a minion present. Okay, that's Kiddush Levana. Okay, you don't have to, but if there is, then you can say Kaddish afterwards. It's better to be said with a minion, but you don't have to say it with a minion. You can say it to home, yes. Okay. Okay, Havdalah, page number 22.
Page 757.
757.
Sorry, what page?
757. These are just concluding psalms. Depending on custom, some say them, some don't say them. Let's move on. Number 22, Havdalah. What does Havdalah mean? Nope. Nope. Distinction. Distinction, separation. Mavdil, to be mavdil, is to separate between Shabbos and the weekday. Okay, to signify, just as we lit candles to signify the beginning of Shabbos, so we're going to light candles and do some other things in order to signify the end of Shabbos, the holy elevated state of the Shabbos, returning back to the regular weekday. So the formula is on page 579 in your Siddur. 579. Okay. As you're finding that, these are the things you'll need for Havdalah. Okay. Cup of wine or grape juice. It should hold at least a revius, like the Kiddush cup. Okay. You can actually use, whereas for Kiddush has to be done using wine or grape juice, Havdalah, in fact, can be done on what's known as Chama Medina, the drink of the particularly accepted drink in any country. So here you could use it on beer, or if you really want to, you can actually use it on on tea. Yeah, best to use it on wine or grape juice. But if you, no, whiskey's not considered to be like a drink. No. Wine, beer, or. Just remember, you need to still drink a certain amount of the cup. So make sure it's something you can actually drink enough of. Okay, so we fill the cup with wine. We fill it now right to the top, if not even to overflowing. In order again to that idea that the blessings of Shabbos should overflow into the week. We then take a multi-wicked candle. See, this one is multi-wicked. Okay, this is what it should look like. I'm sure you've seen these in the shops. Available at all good Jewish bookshops, Judaic stalls, and even downstairs, I think. You see, multi-wicked candle. I'll explain why in a minute. Okay, you should make sure at least 2 wicks are lit.
Did you say 2 wicks?
At least 2, yeah. Try and light all of them, but at least 2 sometimes. Okay, put that there. Okay, so we do Havdalah is the following. So you can follow on page 579 or watch inside. Pick up the cup in your right hand if you're right-handed, or left hand if you're left-handed. So it's spilling nicely, that's fantastic. Okay, we say the first paragraph on page 579. Hinei el Yeshuasi etaf echad ka'aziv zimrat kav vayihil Yeshua v'shavtem mayim sasom b'nei Yeshua la Hashem la Yeshua la mechabit chasela v'asem Yeshua me'anu misakav chasela v'asem Yeshua le'yakov sela. Then you've got the penultimate line of that paragraph says La Yehudim. Can you see it? Now this line should be said everybody together. La Yehudim hayisa ora v'simcha v'sason v'ikar. If you look at the translation, to the Jews there was light, joy, rejoicing, and splendor. Okay, everyone should say that together. So it should be on us. Then you say the bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. You don't drink the wine yet. Okay, it's going to be drink it at the end of Havdalah. Then transfer it into your left hand. At this point, my wife always gives me something to wipe my hand with. And then you say, I'm going to put this down a second though, because I can't do it with one-handed. Then you say, you should actually keep holding the wine in the left hand. So we haven't finished with it yet. You make the bracha over the spices. Okay, the bracha is Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei minei besamim. You smell the spices. Pass it round for everybody to smell. I'll explain the significance in a minute. Okay. Generally, nice little box like that. It doesn't have to be anything fancy like that. Any sort of cloves or mixed spice, anything that smells nice. Yeah, it's sweet smelling. Anyone know what that is?
Etrog.
It's a dried etrog. Yeah. Some people have the custom after Sukkot, after they finish using the etrog, to use it for another mitzvah, to actually stick cloves. I think they used to have it, and I think they all sort of fell out. But when it's still fresh, you can stick the cloves in it, and it has a lovely, brings out the smell of the esrog and of the cloves as well, to be used for another mitzvah of Havdalah. After you've made the bracha over the spices, then generally somebody will lift up the candle, hold the candle up, and as you're saying the bracha, you should, as the candle is held up, you should inspect your fingernails, see the reflection of the flame in your fingernails, and also look for the difference between the shade and the light. Yeah, because the fingers should be casting a shadow on your palms. Okay? Looking at the light, saying the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei ma'orei ha'esh. She said that's now the sign that you can put your mobile phones back on. Shabbos is now virtually out. Okay, having done that, if you weren't holding the cup, pick up the cup again and say the final bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol. We're blessing God for making a distinction between holy and secular. Ben kodesh l'chol, ben or l'choshech, between light and dark. Ben yom hashvi, between the 7 days and the days of creation. Baruch atah Hashem hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol. Blessed is God who makes a distinction between holy and secular, meaning Shabbos and the weekday. Custom then is to drink a large quantity of the cup. Okay, at least a cheekful of the cup, if not more. And then to extinguish the flame, either by pouring wine on it or or dousing out into the spilt wine, yeah, not to blow it out, it's to extinguish it in there.
Why is the wine only drunk by the celebrant?
I'm coming to that. Okay. Poor planning yourself, never in the Boy Scouts. Okay, significance, let's go through the significance of all the things we just did. Okay, firstly, the cup of wine. Why do we do it over wine? Well, just as we marked the sanctity of Shabbos over wine by Kiddush on Friday night, so we mark the distinction between Shabbos and the rest of the week over a cup of wine. The spices. Why do we smell the spices? Yeah, in order to signify that the sweetness of Shabbos will continue into the week. There's an additional reason that we're told on Shabbos we all are given, and we all receive a neshama yesera, an additional soul. Yeah? We all get an extra soul on Shabbos. That's why we get so tired. That's why we need to shlof, yeah, because we've got two souls. Okay. On Motzei Shabbos, at the end of Shabbos, that Shabbos soul departs, and you're left feeling slightly weakened spiritually. In order to revive yourself, you have a sweet smelling spices like smelling salts to bring the spirit back into you. The reason why we have the multi-wick candle, am I going too fast?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason why we have the multi-wick candle on Motzei Shabbos at Havdalah is because Adam, the first man, Adam and Eve, were the first time they were shown how to make fire was actually on Motzei Shabbos. Okay, when Shabbos went out, God showed them how to make fire to symbolise that the fact that the light of Shabbos has gone out, a new weekday fire. We lit Shabbos candles using single wicks. We use a multi-wick to symbolise fire, the fact that they were shown how to create light and warmth for themselves. That's what we do by lighting a Havdalah candle. The reason why we inspect our fingernails and the shadow is in order to make use, when we're making a bracha, that bracha is what we call a bracha of benefit. So you have to have some benefit from that candle. So we use it in order to look at our nails. The nails, the reflection there is symbolic of the heavens, and the light and dark, as we talked about, is the difference between the light of Shabbos and the dark of the weekday. Okay, the distinction between the two. Okay. What else we said? Yes. Then we said that the candle is an extinguished in the wine that's spilt. We don't, again, for the same reason we don't blow out the candle. And you may see some people have a very strange little custom. At the end of Havdalah, they'll come up to the spilt wine. They'll dip their little fingers into it. Have you seen this? Have you seen this? They'll put it
My boys do that.
edge of their eyes and in their pockets.
And
Well, and their payers as well. Oh, well, that is. Why are they doing that?
I don't know.
Why didn't you ask them? Why didn't you ask them? Why didn't you ask them? There's a verse in Psalms and Tehillim that says, "The mitzvah of God is clear, enlightening the eyes." Okay, so the light of Shabbos should there enlighten the rest of our week, and also the brachas, the blessings of Shabbos. That's why people put it in their pockets. So it's spiritual success and material success.
Why do you put the candle out in the wine? Sorry.
Because we don't want to blow the candle out. Okay, yeah.
Spiritual.
Yeah, spiritual thing. Yeah, the candle represents the soul, and we don't, as we said, just like we don't blow out a match or any other candles. Multi-wick, because it's Moreh HaEsh. We're reminding ourselves of the fire. Yeah, fire has to be a larger flame than just a single flame. Okay. Important to note, and I think this may answer the question of why only the person who makes Havdalah should drink from the wine, is because there's a different level of status. The requirement for it, there's a requirement for a man to make, just like it is for a man to make Kiddush, it's also a requirement for a man to make Havdalah, and that's why only he should drink from the wine of Havdalah, because for him this is the actual distinction between Shabbos and the rest of the week. Whereas if you wanted, as I said, up to this point, before you make Havdalah, you can't actually do any weekday activity before we've done Havdalah. However, if you need to, then there is a formula that you can say before making Havdalah. This only applies for women though, which is Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol. Yeah, if you say that with the intention of, this Shabbos has already gone out in actuality, because it's already dark and the 3 stars have appeared. If you say Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol, then you can do weekday activity if you really need to before Havdalah. But you really, the actual act of it is saying Havdalah itself. Yeah. Then you can make Havdalah. Then you make Havdalah, of course.
You can make Havdalah after Shabbos as well, can't you? On Sunday or Monday?
Yes, you've got up until Tuesday.
Why?
Tuesday of the week, because that up until Tuesday is considered connected with the previous Shabbos.
Providing you say.
You have to have made. If you haven't made Havdalah, as long as you have to have made. You have to have said Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol.
In order to postpone it.
No, it's not to percent. In order that you can do weekday activity. You should do Havdalah as soon as possible. If there's for some reason you're absolutely prevented from doing so, then you say Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol, and then you've got up until Tuesday to do Havdalah.
I don't know if they do it IJPS, but at Claw, I know they make Havdalah
Monday morning. Yes, they do IJPS as well. Yes.
As the children coming to school.
Yes, definitely. I've seen it in assembly. Yes.
Rabbi.
Sorry, what's it? Yeah, come on. She shouldn't light the candle. That I haven't heard. Possibly the connection between Adam being the one shown to make the fire, and the fact that her special mitzvah was the lighting of Shabbos candles. Possibly. She shouldn't light the candle. She shouldn't drink the wine. She shouldn't drink the candle.
Well, even if she's the one making her birth.
No, if someone else is making Havdalah.
No, it's just that I've been away with all ladies that are very religious, and there are no men there, and they look.
Yeah. If there's a man available, then the man should make Havdalah. If not, then a woman. There's nothing to stop a woman from making Havdalah. Okay. The correct greeting on Motzei Shabbos. Excellent. Okay. Or alternatively, Shavua Tov. Shavua literally means week. Tov means good. So just to say good Shabbos or Shabbat Shalom. After Shabbos, you should greet each other straight after Havdalah. You should say Shavua Tov. You should have a good week. Or Gut Voch in Yiddish. Gut Voch. You should have a good week. Also customary to sing Eliyahu Hanavi. Sing songs about Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi is the prophet who will herald the coming of Mashiach. And we hope for that. That's the time when it should come. We're told at the beginning of the week that's when the Mashiach will come. And then it leaves us very finally with Malava Malka. Amazing full circle. Gosh, deja vu, as if we haven't mentioned it. Okay, Malava Malka literally means something queen, what? Accompanying the queen. Yes? Same word as the word Levaya. Malava is the same word as Halavaya. Levoya. Yes? Levoya. To accompany. Halavaya Sames, Levoya is the accompaniment of the dead. Accompanying the dead. Malava Malka is the accompanying of the queen. Just as we did right at the beginning with Kabbalat Shabbat, we welcome the Shabbos queen. So too, as is appropriate, when a queen departs, you accompany the queen on her departure. You don't just allow to close the door on the way behind her. So we accompany it. Traditional to have, again, another meal. Yes. Also traditional to light candles. Yeah, to light candles. Yes, to light candles for it again, in order to bring the light back in that we've lost from Shabbos. Although it's not strictly required to have a meal, it's good practice to have a meal. The Gemara tells us, it's not a Gemara, but there's a Kabbalistic idea that the meal that you have at Malava Malka nourishes a small bone called the luz bone, which is situated at the base of the skull, and it's from that bone that the dead will be resurrected in the times of Mashiach. It's specifically nourished by the fried fish, by anything that you eat at Malava Malka.
A veritable banquet, is that allowed?
Absolutely, the more the better. The more spiritual nourishment you can give to your luz bone, the better. £13.50 I think is a bargain to ensure that your resurrection in the times of Mashiach shall come speedily in our days. Amen. I wish you a good Boch. Shabbat Tov. Please God, I'll see you next week.